Hi, everyone. So I'm going to tell the story that explains why we are wearing these ridiculous shirts at a funeral. We had tickets to the game today, and we just plumb forgot about the funeral. And if we could just wrap this thing up real quick, we can make it to game time. No, I'm kidding. We learned of our grandmother's illness, and she fell and broke her femur, and she went to a convalescent center. Well, she went to the hospital and then a convalescent center, and she worked as hard as physically possible to overcome that ailment, and she did, and she succeeded in that. But in the process, she developed heart complications. She got sick, and she had to go to the hospital, and we were called, and we rushed home as soon as we could, because that's our grandmother, and as everyone here knows, that's among the most loving people that you'll ever encounter, and if you have even one opportunity to repay that love, you take it. And we rushed home, and we were by her bedside in the ICU. When we arrived, she had a ventilator, and the hope was that they would remove the ventilator and she would be able to breathe on her own. And this was a real possibility, because Grandma Helen spent her life making sure that she was prepared for moments like this. She lived the way that we're supposed to live, not the way that I live, stopping at McDonald's on my way to Burger King. She took care of her body and her life because it meant that she could spend as much time as possible with us. And that was the most important thing in the world to her. The second most important thing in the world to her was Detroit Tigers baseball. And not in a silly way, not in like a, oh, it's fun to watch grown men in tights kind of way. She grew up with it. Her mother, who, was born in the 19th century, was a big sports fan and passed that on to her. They would go to hockey games and baseball games, and she would sneak into baseball games, and she would listen to baseball games on the radio, and as soon as you could watch them on TV, she would watch them on TV. Approximately 85 seasons worth of baseball games. So it's not just a little thing. Very few people in this room have done anything for 85 years, let alone watch baseball games. I did the math in my head on a calculator, and it was approximately 13,000 baseball games in her life. Did she watch them all? No. But she cared about them all, and she cared about that team. It was an extension of her family in the way that we are all an extension of her family. Some of us are her immediate family, others are people she chose to bring into her family. But to get to the point of her last few days, on Thursday, they took her off the ventilator, and she was able to breathe on her own, but not to the point where it was going to be able to sustain her. So at that point, it became clear that it was just a matter of time, and that we should take as much time as possible to spend with her before we didn't have that chance to do anymore. And so we did. And one of the things that was very important for us to do was to watch these Tiger games with her. We all had just this feeling that she needed to go out on a win. We had spent a lot of time talking to various nurses who told us that there tends to be a narrative to death, that the person who is passing chooses a way in which they want to go. Some people go by themselves once everyone has left the room. Others go when they are surrounded by family. Others go once that last person that they need to express something to has come. And we tried everything. We gave her every opportunity to pick the way that she wanted to. What's the Shakespearean something about a mortal coil? And we kept coming back to this thing that the Tigers needed to do it one last time for her. Unfortunately, on Thursday, they played against the Cleveland Indians and lost. So it's like, is this how Grandma's going to go out, with them losing to the bums from Cleveland? Well, she didn't go out, because, as I pointed out, she had as much literal as figurative heart strength. And so Friday rolled around, and they headed to Toronto, and we figured, they got to beat Toronto. These are Canadians, right? No. They lose on Friday to the Toronto Blue Jays, and you think, God, she's going to go out on a losing streak, but she had a lot of heart. And she kept on going. And so Saturday rolls around, like, well, they just lost to the Blue Jays once. They're not going to humiliate themselves by doing it again. They did. They lost for a third straight time. And we're starting to think maybe this is not the plan for Grandma. Then Sunday rolls around, and she's still going. But you can tell that this is nearing the end. And it's not just in that way where we know that she's going to pass. We already knew that. But you could just sort of tell this was the day. And if the Tigers were going to do this for her, they needed to do it on Sunday. And so the game starts. And it goes as, what was the Yiddish word you used? It goes as famish as our trip to Shirasetic. And there's a few bum plays in the first inning. And did I say it wrong? Shir Shalom. Yeah, I'm famish right now. And so the game starts, and it's calamitous. And within the first inning, there have been a couple of, real blunderhead kind of plays, and Toronto is up 1-0. And then the second inning rolls around, and there are two men on base when up to the plate steps Johnny Peralta. Not her favorite player. Probably not anybody's favorite player, but a hero on this day. And he smacks a 3-run home run, and it's 3-1 in the second inning, and now there's a chance. There's a chance that they've got it. And the game presses on. Doug Fister's on the mound, and he mounts just a valiant effort. He doesn't give up another run through the seventh inning. He comes out of the game. We're up 3-1, but it's still too close, and you don't want any doubt. We wanted it to be 30-1 at this point. We wanted it to be like a little league game against a blind school, and it wasn't. It's a low-scoring game, and when there's a low-scoring game, it means in the ninth inning, Jose Valverde is going to come into the game. Our closer, Big Papa, Papa Grande as they call him, which actually I believe translates to large potato, but that's not the point. Big Papa is getting warmed up in the eighth inning. It's still 3-1. We're at the plate. And Johnny Peralta comes back up, and he says, I can't do any more than I can do. There's nobody on base, but I'll hit another home run, because let's do this for Grandma. And so Johnny Peralta hits his second home run of the game, maybe his sixth of the year. So this doesn't happen a lot. He clobbers it out of there, and it's now 4-1. But 4-1 is still too close, because 3 runs or less, and the closer comes into the game. So Jose Valverde, we go to commercial, and we know Jose Valverde is coming out there. So now, here's what you need to know about my grandmother and Jose Valverde's relationship. He terrified her. Terrified her to the point that she would turn off the television when he came out there. He has this very irritating little blonde beard and this funny-looking hair, and he dances all over the place, and he sort of makes a mockery of the game that she loves. But he's good, but so much drama behind this guy's performances. There's never been a lead that was big enough for him to enjoy. He always could find a way to diminish it. So, what happens to Grandma as... What happens to... speech. So the TV comes back on. It's the bottom of the ninth inning, and out comes Jose Valverde. And what does Grandma do? She shuts off the TV in the ultimate possible way. Her heart stops in that moment. And she doesn't watch that last inning, because Grandma doesn't watch the last half inning of the game. She waits for me to call to say that they won. I was seated next to her on her left. My dad was seated next to her on the right. My brother was seated next to her on the right. Family was surrounding her. Family that doesn't like baseball, by and large. Family that actually kind of hates baseball, by and large. But they did it for her because that was something that was extremely special to her. And so Jose Valverde on this one day, with my grandmother having just passed, and all of us gathered round to watch this final victory that will send her into the afterlife for the first time in as long as I can remember, gets those Blue Jays down 1-2-3 in the easiest of possible fashions. And we all cheer. as a family, we all cheer because we know that my grandma got, all of our family member, grandma got, I guess you guys don't think of her as grandma, but she got the ending to the story that we wanted her to have. Because it's a sad story, but it could have a happy ending if we just gave it a story that could mean something to all of us, that would mean something to her, that would lend itself to us wearing t-shirts at a funeral and putting a tiger's cap inside of her coffin, because these were things that were important to her. Family, tigers, and when you can combine the two, that's just about the perfect day on earth for her. She lived a lot of it, she had a lot of adventures, she traveled all over the world, but tigers with her family, that's the best day on earth to her. And so her last day on earth was perfect. And we thank Jose Valverde for that. And that's why they call him the closer. So that's the story of why we're dressed this way. And I hope it is as appreciable to you as it is to us that she would want it this way. And that, that wherever her spirit is, that she's looking down and she's having a good laugh about it, and probably a couple of tears, because that's how she was. She laughed until she cried out of happiness, and I think we gave her that today. So thank you, everyone.
Das ist nichts, gleichzeitig neues halbes vom Spiel. Take me out to the morning, take me out to the park.